The Valorian Empire had controlled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships moved through space like silver dreams, and their weapons could destroy planets with a single shot. They believed they were the strongest force in the universe. When their sensors detected a strange ship entering their territory, they sent one of their best commanders to investigate. Commander Zethrak stood on the bridge of his war cruiser, staring at the image on his screen. The unknown ship looked nothing like the elegant Valorian vessels. It was covered in thick metal plates with rough edges and strange weapons jutting from its hull. The ship moved slowly through space, sending out simple mathematical patterns as if trying to say hello. Zethrak felt curious but also worried. His four eyes narrowed as he studied the vessel. It looked primitive, like something built by a species that barely understood space travel. Yet there was something about it that made him uncomfortable. The ship reminded him of a predator, all muscles and teeth hidden beneath rough skin. He gave the order to his science officer. The scanning beam reached out across the empty space between the two ships, analyzing everything about the strange vessel. Within moments, data flooded across multiple screens. What Zethrak saw made his breath catch in his throat. The ship carried weapons unlike anything the Valorians had ever seen. There were guns that fired solid metal at incredible speeds. There were explosive devices powerful enough to crack open moons. There were chemical rockets and missiles packed with enough destructive power to make even a Valorian warrior nervous. The entire ship seemed designed for one single purpose, which was war. But that was not what disturbed Zethrak the most. The scans revealed information about the crew inside the ship. They called themselves humans, and their biology was shocking. These creatures needed to eat constantly. They could not survive extreme temperatures. They had no natural armor, no claws, no poison. They were soft and weak and fragile. Yet they had built a ship that could fight against anything in the galaxy. Zethrak made a decision. He opened a communication channel, hoping these humans could understand reason. Inside the ship called Defiance, Captain John Harper sat in his command chair. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes that had seen many difficult situations. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, monitoring systems and waiting for orders. When the alien ship appeared on their sensors, everyone became tense. Lieutenant Karen Mills turned from her communication station. Her young face showed both excitement and fear. She told the captain that the aliens were trying to contact them. John straightened his uniform and nodded. The view screen flickered and an alien face appeared. John had never seen anything like it. The alien had four eyes that seemed to look in different directions at once. Its skin was almost transparent, showing strange organs beneath. Its mouth moved in ways that seemed wrong, but the translation computer turned the sounds into words John could understand. The alien introduced himself as Commander Zethrak of the Valorian Empire. He said the Defiance had entered Valorian space without permission. His voice was cold as he explained that the ship must state its purpose or be destroyed. John kept his voice calm and steady. He explained that they came from a planet called Earth. They were exploring space and hoping to meet other intelligent species. They meant no harm to anyone. They came in peace. Zethrak stared at the human captain. The creature looked so ordinary, so vulnerable. How had such a weak species survived long enough to build spaceships? The Valorian commander asked a direct question. If humans came in peace, why did their ship carry so many weapons? John paused before answering. How could he explain thousands of years of human history in a few words? How could he make this alien understand why humans always prepared for the worst while hoping for the best? He finally said that on Earth, they had learned a hard lesson. It was better to have weapons and not need them than to need weapons and not have them. Humans hoped for peace with all their hearts, but they always prepared for war. It was the only way they knew how to survive. Zethrak felt a chill run through his body. These humans had built their entire philosophy around violence. They were not warriors who sometimes fought. They were survivors who always expected danger. Even their peaceful missions carried enough firepower to level cities. The Valorian commander made his decision. The humans would accompany his ship to the Valorian capital world. There, the High Council would decide what to do with them. If the humans resisted, the Valorians would destroy their ship. The choice was simple. John looked at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Danny Cole. The young man checked his instruments and shook his head slightly. The alien ship was much more powerful than the Defiance. In a direct fight, the human ship would lose badly. They had no real choice. John told Commander Zethrak they would follow peacefully. He closed the communication channel and turned to his first officer, Commander Lisa Grant. She was a smart woman who had served with John for many years. They understood each other without needing many words. Lisa said quietly that this could go very badly for them. They were alone in alien space, outgunned and outnumbered. If the Valorians decided humans were a threat, the Defiance and everyone on it would be destroyed. Earth would never know what happened to them. John nodded, but his face showed determination rather than fear. He said this could also be the beginning of something wonderful. Either way, they were about to show these aliens what humans were made of. They would face whatever came with courage and intelligence. Deep in the engineering section of the ship, Chief Engineer Paul Martinez watched his monitors. He could see the alien scanning beams moving through every part of the Defiance. The aliens were learning everything about human technology. They knew exactly what weapons the ship carried, how the engines worked, and how the life support systems functioned. Paul opened a private channel to the bridge. He warned the captain that the aliens now knew every detail about their capabilities. There were no secrets left. John's voice came back steady and confident. He told Paul to let the aliens look all they wanted. Let them see what happened when a species had to fight for survival every single day for millions of years. Let them see what humans became when the universe tried to kill them over and over. Maybe it would make the Valorians think twice before starting a fight. Paul smiled despite the tension that filled the ship. Humans had always been good at making others reconsider their choices. It was one of the reasons humanity had survived when so many other species on Earth had gone extinct. The two ships turned together and began moving toward the heart of the Valorian Empire. Behind them, the stars burned with cold light. Ahead of them lay either humanity's greatest triumph or its final mistake. The crew of the Defiance did not know which one they would find, but they were ready to face it together as humans always had. The Valorian capital world appeared before them like a jewel floating in darkness. Captain John Harper stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the planet grow larger on his view screen. The world was covered with crystal towers that reached toward the sky. Bridges made of pure light connected the buildings. Gardens floated in the air, held up by technology that seemed like magic. It was beautiful in a way that made Earth cities look primitive and crude. The Defiance moved slowly through space, surrounded by Valorian warships. The human vessel looked small and ugly next to the elegant alien craft. On the bridge, Lieutenant Karen Mills whispered that it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. John agreed silently, but he also felt worried. This was a civilization at its peak, confident and powerful. Humans were still climbing up from the bottom. The Valorians sent a small shuttle to collect the human delegation. John chose his team carefully. He brought Commander Lisa Grant because she was good at talking to people and understanding what they really meant. He brought Chief Engineer Paul Martinez because someone might ask technical questions. He brought Lieutenant Danny Cole because if things went wrong, Danny was quick at finding solutions. The shuttle was unlike anything humans had built. It seemed to move through space by thinking about where it wanted to go. Inside, the walls changed colors and the seats adjusted themselves to fit the humans perfectly. A young Valorian named Thesix piloted the shuttle. He watched the humans with open curiosity, as if they were strange animals in a zoo. Thesix told them they were the first species in 500 years to enter Valorian space without being invited. Most species that made that mistake did not survive the experience. His tone was not threatening, just stating a fact. Paul grinned and said humans were hard to kill. It came from spending millions of years as prey animals on Earth. Everything bigger than humans had tried to eat them, so they learned to be clever and tough. Thesix looked confused. He asked if humans had been hunted by predators. The idea seemed strange to him. Lisa explained that on Earth humans had no natural weapons. Big cats hunted them. Snakes bit them. Other humans fought them. Diseases killed them. Even the weather tried to destroy them. Earth gave humans big brains and the will to survive, but nothing else. Every advantage humans had was something they built or invented themselves. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere. The humans got their first look at an alien city. Everything was organized and clean. There were no crowds pushing through streets. No vehicles honking and rushing. Everyone moved with purpose and order. It was peaceful but also somehow empty. Danny asked where all the people were. The city looked almost deserted despite its enormous size. Thesix explained that every Valorian was at their assigned duty. Everyone served the Empire according to their talents. There was no chaos, no disorder, no wasted time or energy. Everything had its place and purpose. John and Lisa exchanged glances. A society without chaos sounded nice, but it also sounded lifeless. Humans had always thrived in the mess of free choice and unpredictable behavior. Some of humanity's greatest achievements came from people doing unexpected things. The council chamber was enormous. It was a dome filled with floating platforms and holographic displays that showed information from across the galaxy. 12 Valorian elders sat in a semicircle, their faces ancient and unreadable. At the center sat High Counselor Vexrin, wearing robes that shimmered with tiny lights embedded in the fabric. Vexrin spoke, and her voice filled the entire chamber. She addressed the humans formally, saying they stood before the Valorian High Council. The Valorians had examined the human ship and found it disturbing. She asked the humans to explain why they traveled through space in a vessel designed only for destruction. John stepped forward. He called Vexrin by her title and spoke respectfully. He explained that the Defiance was not designed only for destruction. It was designed for survival. Humans came from a world where violence was the price of staying alive. They learned to fight because everything else fought them first. One of the elders, a male named Corthan, leaned forward. He said humans spoke about violence as if it were natural. The Valorian Empire maintained peace through strength, but they did not celebrate conflict. The human ship contained weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. Did humans not see the danger in having such power? Paul spoke up. He said with respect that humans saw the necessity. Every weapon on the Defiance existed because at some point in human history, they needed it to survive. Railguns were invented to punch through armor. Missiles allowed them to strike enemies from a distance. Nuclear weapons created a situation where everyone was too afraid to fight, which ironically brought peace to Earth. Fear became a teacher when humans were willing to learn from it. Another elder named Silverus seemed shocked. She asked if humans would really destroy their own planet to prevent war. The idea seemed insane to her. Lisa nodded. She explained that it had worked on Earth. Once humans had the power to destroy everything, they finally stopped fighting each other over small things. They started looking up at the stars instead of down at their differences. Sometimes fear was the only thing that made people act rationally. Vexrin studied the humans carefully. They were such strange creatures. They talked about horror as if it were wisdom. They spoke about death as if it were a gift that taught valuable lessons. The High Counselor said the Valorians had scanned human biology. Humans were fragile and short-lived. They needed to eat constantly and were vulnerable to thousands of toxins and diseases. Yet humans claimed to be warriors. How could such weakness produce strength? John smiled. He explained that because humans knew they were fragile, they overcompensated. They built better armor than their skin. They built bigger weapons than their fists. They built faster ships than their legs could run. Humans did not have the luxury of natural advantages, so they created artificial ones. Every human on the Defiance knew they could die at any moment. It made them careful. It also made them dangerous. The council chamber fell silent. The elders spoke among themselves in their own language, too fast for the translation software to follow. The humans waited, trying not to show how nervous they felt. Finally, Vexrin spoke again. She said the humans would remain in orbit while the council decided their fate. If the Valorians decided humans were a threat, the Defiance would be destroyed. If they believed humans could coexist peacefully with the Valorian Empire, the humans would be allowed to return home with an escort to establish formal contact with Earth. John said that was all humans wanted. A chance to prove themselves worthy of trust and friendship. As the human delegation was escorted from the chamber, Elder Corthan turned to Vexrin with concern on his face. He said humans were unlike anything they had encountered before. Humans embraced violence as a philosophy. If humans were allowed to spread through the galaxy, they could upset the balance that had been maintained for thousands of years. Vexrin nodded slowly. She understood his concern, but she also wondered if humans could teach the Valorians something they had forgotten. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. Perhaps it was time the Valorians remembered that their way was not the only way to survive. Back on the Defiance, the crew waited with nervous energy. John explained the situation to everyone. He kept his voice confident even though he felt uncertainty in his heart. They had done what they came to do. They made contact with an alien species. Now they had to wait and see if the Valorians could accept humans for what they were. In the engineering section, Paul ran diagnostics on all the weapon systems. He made sure everything was ready if the situation turned bad. In the medical bay, Dr. Amy Chen prepared emergency protocols in case of combat. In the tactical center, Danny coordinated defensive positions and planned escape routes. They were a crew built for war, but hoping desperately for peace. They represented all of humanity, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on every person aboard the ship. But they did not break under the pressure. Humans never did. They endured, they adapted, and they waited to see what the universe would throw at them next. 3 days passed like years. The Defiance remained in orbit around the Valorian capital world, surrounded by alien warships that watched every move. Captain John Harper barely slept during those days. He stayed close to the bridge, always ready for the moment when the Valorians would deliver their judgment. His crew felt the same tension. They worked quietly, checking systems and preparing for whatever came next. On the morning of the 4th day, everything changed in an instant. Commander Lisa Grant was monitoring the long-range sensors when she noticed something wrong. She called John to the bridge immediately. Her voice carried an edge of worry that made everyone pay attention. She told him there was a massive energy signature at the edge of the star system. Something very large had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The readings were aggressive and hostile, nothing like the smooth signatures of Valorian vessels. John studied the data on his screen. His stomach tightened with concern. He asked if the Valorians were seeing the same thing. Karen Mills confirmed they were. The Valorians were trying to contact the Defiance right now. John ordered her to put it on screen. Commander Zithrak appeared on the view screen, and John saw something he had not seen before. The alien looked afraid. His 4 eyes were wide and his movements were quick and nervous. He spoke rapidly, his words tumbling over each other. Zithrak explained there was a serious situation. A Krell hive ship had entered the system. The Krell were a plague that consumed all organic matter they encountered. The Valorians thought they had driven the Krell from this region years ago, but they were wrong. John asked how bad the situation was. Zithrak's answer was grim. The hive ship was enormous, larger than the entire Valorian defense fleet combined. It carried millions of Krell warriors inside its organic hull. The Krell did not negotiate or show mercy. They only consumed everything in their path. They would not stop until every living thing on the capital world was dead or absorbed into the hive. On the view screen, the hive ship became visible. It was grotesque and terrifying. The ship looked like it was grown rather than built. A mass of organic tissue and mechanical components fused together. Bioluminescent lights pulsed across its surface like a diseased heartbeat. The ship was heading straight for the planet. John made his decision without hesitation. He asked what the Valorians needed from the Defiance. Zithrak paused. He said he was authorized to offer a temporary alliance. The human weapons might be useful in the defense of the planet, but the Valorian commander warned that even with human help, their chances of survival were very poor. John did not think twice. He told Zithrak they were in. He ordered Lisa to give him tactical analysis. He told Danny to calculate firing solutions for their weapons. He called down to engineering and told Paul he needed every weapon system at maximum capacity. His crew moved into action with practice speed. John opened a channel to the entire ship so everyone could hear him. He explained the situation simply. They came to the stars looking for friends and had found them. Now those friends were in danger from an enemy that wanted to kill millions of innocent people. The Valorians might not trust humans yet, but that did not matter. Humans would show the galaxy what they did when others needed protecting. He ordered everyone to battle stations and told them to make Earth proud. The Defiance broke orbit. Its engines burned bright as the ship accelerated toward the approaching hive ship. Beside the human vessel, the Valorian fleet formed up in perfect formation. Their elegant ships moved together like a school of fish preparing to face the monster coming toward them. High Counselor Vexrin watched from the planet's surface. She opened a communication channel to Commander Zithrak. She asked if he had really given humans permission to fight alongside Valorian forces. Zithrak confirmed he had. He said human weapons were crude but effective. More importantly, he had seen something in Captain Harper's eyes. The human did not hesitate to help. Even knowing the Valorians could have destroyed his ship just days ago, that kind of courage deserved respect. Vexrin said quietly that they would see if human actions matched their words. The Krell hive ship opened fire first. It launched massive projectiles made of compressed organic matter. The projectiles exploded against Valorian shields with tremendous force. The Valorian fleet returned fire with energy weapons that carved glowing wounds in the hive ship's hull. But the ship absorbed the damage like a living thing and kept coming. John watched the tactical display carefully. The hive ship was huge, but it was still made of matter and energy. It could be hurt if they hit it in the right places. He told Danny to target the bioluminescent sections. Those looked like they might be vital organs or power sources. He ordered the railguns to fire on his command. The Defiance moved closer, its smaller size allowing it to slip through the hive ship's defenses. At 2,000 kilometers, which was very close for space combat, John gave the order. The railguns fired with a sound that vibrated through the entire ship. 6 tungsten projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, screaming through the vacuum of space. They hit the hive ship with the force of small nuclear explosions. The projectiles punched completely through the outer layers and detonated deep inside the alien vessel. The hive ship shuddered. Its bioluminescence flickered and dimmed. On the Valorian command ship, Zithrak watched in amazement. The humans had actually hurt the hive ship, something Valorian weapons struggled to do. The hive ship noticed the Defiance now. It launched a swarm of smaller biofighters that moved like angry insects. They came from all directions trying to surround the human ship. John ordered evasive maneuvers. He told Karen to launch countermeasures and told Danny to switch to point defense cannons. The Defiance twisted through space. The human crew reacted with speed that came from centuries of aerial combat experience. The point defense cannons tracked and destroyed fighter after fighter. Countermeasure pods exploded into clouds of metal fragments that shredded the organic attackers. But there were too many enemies. A biofighter crashed into the Defiance's port side. Its acid blood ate through the armor plating. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Paul's voice came over the intercom from engineering. He reported a hull breach on Deck 4. He was sealing emergency bulkheads to prevent the damage from spreading. John's mind worked quickly. They could not keep fighting like this forever. They needed to end the battle quickly or the Defiance would be torn apart. He told Lisa to coordinate with the Valorian fleet. They would make another pass with the railguns and then launch every missile the ship carried. Everything they had left. Lisa warned him that meant 16 nuclear-tipped cruise missiles. If they fired everything, the ship would have no weapons left. They would be defenseless. John said grimly that they better make the attack count then. He told everyone to brace for impact. They were going in close. The Defiance accelerated directly toward the hive ship. It flew through the swarm of biofighters, taking hits, but not stopping. The Valorian fleet recognized what the humans were planning. They followed the Defiance and used their energy weapons to clear a path. At 500 kilometers, which was suicide range in space combat, the Defiance unleashed everything it had. Railguns fired continuously until they overheated. Missiles streaked from their launch tubes, their rocket motors burning bright. Behind the human ship, the Valorian fleet poured every bit of firepower they possessed into the same target area. The hive ship's hull ruptured. Atmosphere vented into space in massive plumes. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. Something catastrophic happened at its core. The bioluminescence went nova bright for a single instant. Then the entire vessel tore itself apart in a silent, spectacular explosion that lit up the darkness. The shockwave hit the Defiance like a giant hammer. The ship tumbled out of control. John held onto his chair as artificial gravity failed. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Someone screamed in pain somewhere on the ship. Slowly, systems came back online. The ship righted itself. The crew checked for damage. John asked for a status report. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. Paul's voice came back from engineering. They were intact, but barely. Armor was shredded. 2 railguns were destroyed. They were leaking atmosphere from 4 different decks. But the crew was alive and the ship could still fly. On the view screen, Commander Zithrak appeared. His 4 eyes were wide with something that looked like respect and disbelief mixed together. He told Captain Harper that humans were either the bravest or the most insane species he had ever encountered. That attack run was completely suicidal. John managed a tired smile. He said that on Earth they had a saying about fortune favoring the bold. Sometimes crazy was exactly what the situation needed. Zithrak's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. He said the High Council would definitely want to speak with the humans again. And this time, the conversation would be very different. The aftermath of the battle changed everything between humans and Valorians. The capital world celebrated its survival, and at the center of that celebration were the humans from the Defiance. What had started as suspicion had transformed into respect earned through sacrifice. The aliens who had almost destroyed the human ship now wanted to understand the species that saved them. Captain John Harper and his senior officers were invited back to the council chamber. This time, the atmosphere was completely different. When the humans entered, all 12 elders stood up from their seats. It was a gesture of deep honor that surprised everyone. High Counselor Vexrin walked down from her platform and approached John directly. She placed her hand over her chest in what the translation software indicated was a sign of great respect. She told Captain Harper that he and his crew had saved millions of Valorian lives. When the humans could have run to safety, they chose to stand and fight against an enemy that was not their problem. The council wanted to understand why humans made that choice. John looked at his crew before answering. He explained that they did it because it was the right thing to do. On Earth, humans had a concept they called common humanity. It meant that when someone was in danger, you helped them regardless of the cost to yourself. Humans were learning that this idea applied to all intelligent life, not just their own species. Elder Corthan, who had been doubtful during the first meeting, stepped forward. He admitted the council had misjudged humans badly. The Valorians saw the weapons and assumed humans were warlike aggressors. They did not understand that those same weapons could be used to defend others. He asked the humans to teach them about Earth and help them understand humanity better. Over the following days and weeks, a cultural exchange began that would change both civilizations. The humans shared stories of Earth's long history, talking about the wars and struggles, the victories and failures. They explained how conflict had pushed humanity to innovate and how competition made them exceed their natural limits. Commander Lisa Grant spent hours talking with Valorian philosophers. She told them about World War II and how the threat of complete destruction had unified humanity. Fear of extinction drove technological advancement at speeds never seen before. Lisa explained that humans invented radar, jet engines, computers, and nuclear power all within a few years during the war. They had to create these things because survival depended on it. She admitted that millions of people died, which was terrible, but their sacrifice bought humanity the future they now enjoyed. The Valorian philosophers struggled with this concept. Their society had been peaceful for so long that they forgot what desperation could create. They had forgotten that sometimes progress required pain. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez worked with Valorian technicians, sharing knowledge about human engineering principles. The Valorians were amazed by concepts like redundancy and backup systems. They asked Paul why humans built every system assuming it would eventually fail. Paul explained that everything breaks sooner or later. Humans planned for failure because it was inevitable. They built multiple backups and alternative solutions. They cross-trained crew members so anyone could do any job if needed. It made human systems heavier and less efficient than Valorian technology. But it also made them incredibly hard to destroy completely. The Valorian engineers began to see value in this approach. Their own ships were more advanced, but they were also more fragile. A single critical failure could cripple a Valorian warship. The Defiance could lose half its systems and still fight. That kind of resilience came from assuming the worst would happen and preparing for it. Lieutenant Danny Cole worked with Valorian military strategists. He shared tactical doctrines developed over thousands of years of human warfare. The Valorians had fought the Krell before, but always from long range. They used superior technology to keep enemies at a safe distance. Danny explained that humans fought like cornered animals. When they could not run away, they turned and attacked with everything they had. That was why the close-range assault worked against the hive ship. The Krell did not expect anyone to be crazy enough to try such a dangerous maneuver. The Valorian strategists began adding human concepts to their own doctrine. They practiced aggressive maneuvers and close-range combat. They learned to fight dirty when necessary. It felt wrong to their orderly minds, but they could not argue with the results. Dr. Amy Chen worked with Valorian medical personnel. She shared knowledge of human biology and medicine. The Valorian doctors were fascinated by how vulnerable yet resilient humans were at the same time. A Valorian doctor asked in shock if humans could really lose a quarter of their blood and survive. Amy confirmed this was true, at least temporarily. Humans were very good at surviving trauma. Evolution on Earth favored humans who could take serious damage and keep going. Many things on Earth wanted to eat humans, so only the tough ones survived to have children. But the most important conversations happened quietly, away from formal meetings. Captain John Harper and High Counselor Vexrin met privately in a garden overlooking the capital city. The garden was beautiful, filled with plants from many worlds all growing together peacefully. Vexrin told John something she had not shared publicly. When the Valorians first scanned the Defiance, they were terrified, not because of the weapons themselves, but because of what the weapons represented. A species so young and violent reaching the stars seemed dangerous. The Valorians thought humans would bring chaos to the order they had worked thousands of years to maintain. John asked what she thought now. Vexrin admitted she wondered if the Valorian Empire needed some chaos. The Valorians had become comfortable and predictable. They patrolled their borders and maintained their peace, assuming that was enough. But the Krell proved them wrong. The enemy evolved and adapted and became more dangerous with each encounter. Meanwhile, the Valorians remained the same, trusting in old superiority. John chose his words carefully. He told her about a saying humans had: hard times create strong people create good times create weak people, and weak people create hard times. It was a cycle that repeated throughout history. The Valorians had enjoyed good times for so long they forgot how to be truly strong. Not weak exactly, but not adaptable either. Vexrin asked if humans were still in the hard times phase of the cycle. John laughed. He said humans only reached space a few decades ago. They were still learning basic things about the universe. But yes, they remembered what struggle felt like. That memory kept them sharp and ready for anything. Vexrin was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his words. Finally, she said the council wanted to propose an alliance, not as superior beings helping inferior ones, but as equals. Humans would teach Valorians to fight and think like humans. In return, Valorians would share their technology and knowledge of the galaxy. Together, perhaps they could create something better than either species could alone. John felt emotion rising in his chest. Humanity had reached for the stars, hoping to find friends. Against all odds, they had succeeded. He said quietly that humans would be honored to accept. But Vexrin should know that humans were messy. They argued and disagreed and made mistakes constantly. Humans were far from perfect. Vexrin's expression changed into something that might have been amusement. She said Valorians were not perfect either. They just had more practice at hiding their flaws. Perhaps it was time they learned to be more honest about their imperfections. News of the alliance spread quickly through both civilizations. On Earth, billions of people celebrated humanity's first real contact with aliens. On the Valorian capital world, citizens began questioning centuries of established beliefs and traditions. But in darker corners of the galaxy, other species noticed what happened. Humanity had announced its presence in the most dramatic way possible, by defeating a Krell hive ship. Some species saw humans as potential allies. Others saw them as potential threats that needed to be eliminated. And deep in unexplored regions of space, ancient intelligences stirred. They were curious about these violent newcomers who had impressed even the mighty Valorian Empire. The galaxy was about to become much more interesting and much more dangerous. 6 months passed since humanity first made contact with the Valorian Empire. The galaxy looked very different now. The alliance between humans and Valorians had changed interstellar politics in ways no one expected. The Defiance, repaired and upgraded with Valorian technology, now served as the flagship of a joint task force. The ship patrolled border regions where the Krell were most active, always ready to defend against new threats. Captain John Harper stood on his bridge, which now combined human and Valorian technology. Holographic displays floated in the air showing data from sensors that could detect ships light years away. His crew had learned to use the new equipment quickly, and Valorian officers now worked beside them. The two species were learning from each other every day. Commander Zithrak had become the official Valorian liaison officer aboard the Defiance. Over the months, he and John had become genuine friends despite their different backgrounds. They often shared meals together, though they could not eat the same food. Zithrak watched John drink his morning coffee and said he still found the human beverage disturbing. Consuming a stimulant in liquid form seemed inefficient compared to Valorian methods. John smiled and said Zithrak was thinking about it wrong. Coffee was not just about the caffeine. It was about the ritual, the taste, the moment of calm before a busy day started. Humans called it comfort, something done for emotional reasons rather than practical ones. Zithrak repeated the word comfort as if testing it. He said he was learning that humans valued comfort in ways Valorians did not. It made humans seem more alive somehow, more connected to their experiences. Before John could respond, Karen Mills interrupted them. She reported they were receiving a priority transmission from Valorian High Command. The encryption level indicated something extremely important. Command was requesting the entire task force return to the capital world immediately. John asked if they said why, but Karen told him no reason was given. John and Zithrak looked at each other with concern. John ordered the ship to set course for the Valorian capital world at maximum speed. The journey took 3 days. When the task force arrived, they found the planet's orbit crowded with ships from many different species. John recognized some from the database the Valorians had shared. There were ships from the Threenik Collective, the Sorrow Monks, and the Crystalline Litharians. Species from across the galaxy had gathered here. Commander Lisa Grant observed that they were not the only ones invited to whatever this was. High Counselor Vexrin met them when they arrived at the council chamber. John was surprised to see her looking pleased rather than worried. She greeted them warmly and said they were about to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Assembly was being convened. Every major spacefaring species would attend. The council chamber had been transformed into a massive meeting hall. Holographic projections allowed representatives from across the galaxy to participate remotely. John counted at least 50 different species, each stranger and more alien than the last. Some looked like plants. Some looked like crystals. Some looked like nothing John could describe. Vexrin took her place at the center podium where everyone could see her. She addressed the assembled delegates formally, thanking them for attending. She said they had been summoned to witness the formal recognition of humanity as a spacefaring civilization. They would also discuss new protocols for galactic security. Vexrin explained what happened 6 months ago. When the human vessel first entered Valorian space, the initial impulse was suspicion and fear. The humans were violent and aggressive, armed with weapons that disturbed the Valorians. The council nearly destroyed the human ship. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Several species leaned forward with interest, wanting to hear more. Vexrin continued her story. Then the Krell attacked the capital world. These same humans who owed the Valorians nothing, who had been threatened with destruction, chose to stand and fight. They used courage and innovation to help defeat an enemy that seemed unbeatable. They taught the Valorians that strength without adaptability was just another form of weakness. They proved that weapons were only as good or evil as those who wielded them. A Threenik delegate spoke, its voice sounding like wind chimes. It asked if humans were not dangerous. Their scans showed incredible destructive capacity. How could anyone trust such a violent species? John stood up. Vexrin gestured for him to approach the podium. He walked forward, feeling hundreds of eyes from dozens of species watching his every move. He had never been more aware that he represented all of humanity. John spoke clearly and honestly. He said the Threenik delegate was right to be concerned. Humans were dangerous and there was no point in lying about it. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They fought each other for resources and territory and survival. They built weapons that could destroy their entire planet. But humans also built philosophies and ethics and codes of honor. They learned that strength without morality was just brutality. The weapons humans carried were not who they were as people. Weapons were tools that humans hoped never to use, but were ready to use if someone threatened innocent lives. A Litharian delegate spoke next. Its crystalline body refracted light in beautiful patterns as it moved. It asked what humanity wanted from the galaxy. What were human goals and ambitions? John thought carefully about how to answer. He said humans wanted what everyone wanted. Safety for their families, friends they could trust, a chance to grow and learn and become better than they were. Humans were not looking to conquer or dominate anyone. They just wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. In return, they would stand with other species when danger came, the way they stood with the Valorians. An elder from the Sorrow Monks spoke slowly. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their pacifism and wisdom. He asked if humans could truly promise peace while carrying such weapons of war. John answered with complete honesty. No, he could not promise peace in that way. Humans could promise to try for peace. They could promise to defend rather than attack. But they could not promise to be harmless because sometimes the only way to protect innocent people was to be more dangerous than those who would hurt them. Peace was not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace was the choice not to use that capacity except when absolutely necessary. The assembly fell silent. Delegates from across the galaxy considered his words carefully. Finally, Vexrin spoke again. She said the Valorian Empire proposed two things. First, humanity should be recognized as a full member of the Galactic Assembly, with all rights and responsibilities that came with membership. Second, they should form a joint defense force combining human tactical thinking with the technology of all willing species. The Krell were not the only threat in the galaxy, and everyone needed to be prepared. The vote took many hours. There was much debate and discussion. Some species worried about human violence. Others argued that the galaxy needed defenders who understood the cost of failure. Eventually, by a large majority, both proposals passed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The galaxy had gained defenders who knew how to fight when fighting was necessary. After the assembly ended, John found himself in a quiet corridor with Vexrin and other human officers who had arrived for the ceremony. Vexrin told John that humans had changed the Valorian Empire in just 6 months. They had restructured military doctrine, updated ship designs, and begun training officers in what humans called aggressive defense. The Valorians were becoming something new. Lisa added that humans were learning just as much from the Valorians. Earth was advancing faster than anyone dreamed possible, thanks to Valorian technology and knowledge. The partnership benefited everyone involved. Vexrin smiled and said she believed this was what humans called a win-win scenario. Later, John stood alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. So much had changed since the Defiance left Earth on its mission. They came seeking answers and found questions instead. But they also found friends and allies and proof that the universe was bigger and more wonderful than humanity dared to imagine. Paul Martinez joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to John and said he figured the captain could use it after such a big day. John agreed it was the biggest day in human history. Humanity was part of the galactic community now. Earth was not alone anymore. Paul asked if John thought humans were really ready for this responsibility. John considered the question carefully. He said no, humans were probably not ready. But humans never were ready for anything. Humanity always jumped into challenges without knowing if they could succeed. They learned by doing, not by waiting until conditions were perfect. This was just the next challenge. Paul grinned and said the galaxy had no idea what was about to happen now that humans were involved. John laughed. He said humans had no idea either, and that was what made it exciting. On Earth, news was spreading about the historic day. Humanity had made contact with dozens of alien species, formed an alliance, and earned a place among the stars. Children looked up at the night sky with new wonder. Scientists studied Valorian data and had their minds blown by new possibilities. Military officers analyzed the battle against the Krell, learning from both successes and mistakes.